From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Amarachi Ubani.
Tonight, bandits kill 19 persons, burn down houses in Kaduna State as former NBA chairman in Imo State is murdered. Communal clashes in two local government areas of Orlu, Orlu and Irekodun force Osun State government to declare a 24-hour curfew. Ekiti State Attorney General challenges Inspector General of Police in court over sack of pregnant female police officer. And operations continue at the site of a collapsed Indian dam which triggered a huge flood. Plus sports and international news. The bandits again struck today in Kaduna State where they launched two separate attacks that resulted in the death of at least 19 persons and several others injured in Benigwari and Kajuru local government areas of the state. The State Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs, Samuel Adawan, who confirmed the incident, explained that 14 of the 19 people were killed yesterday at Kutemeshi village in Benigwari, while 5 others were murdered in Kujani village in Kajuru. According to him, in Kutemeshi village, some shops were looted with valuable items carted away by the attackers.
It's unfortunate, and the governor of Kaduna State, Mala Nasir Ahmed Al-Rufai, is personally supervising the response or engagement between Kaduna State government and security agencies that are working in overcoming the security challenges we are battling with in and around the Benungwari general area and other flashpoints across the state. Well, as I speak with you, in the Benungwari general area, there is a defense headquarters response codenamed Operation Wild Punch, added with troops of 1 Division Nigerian Army and also troops of the Nigerian Air Force that are stationed in Benungwari, side by side with mobile police, and we are also engaging critical stakeholders and strengthening and expanding our human intelligence network, which are also helping us to have a rich intelligence gathering. That is why the Air Force, the ground troops are taking the battle to the doorsteps of the armed bandits. But the point that you need to note is the fact that Benungwari boundaries with Niger, Zamfara, and Katsina State, and to some extent up to Sokoto and up to Kepi, in view of the vast nature of the general area. We are doing our best and we will continue to scale up what we are doing.
Meanwhile, the Imo State Police Command has confirmed the murder of a 64-year-old man, Ndionyema Wankwo, who is the former chairman of the Nigerian Bar Association, Owerri branch. The State Police Command says when it received report of the murder, operatives of the command moved to the scene of the incident, which is the office, and met the lifeless body of the lawyer in a pool of his own blood with machete cuts on his neck. The statement adds that his car and other yet-to-be-identified items were taken away. The State's Commissioner of Police, Nasir Muhammad, called for calm and has directed investigation into the matter. And the abducted chairman of the Nigeria Labour Congress in Taraba State, Mr. Peter Gambo, has regained his freedom. Mr. Gambo was kidnapped from his residence in Sunkani, the headquarters of Ardokola, a local government area, earlier today. Reports are sketchy as to how he regained his freedom. Neither has anyone confirmed if a ransom was paid to his abductors. It's the second time Mr. Gambo will be kidnapped and set free by his abductors. Well, staying with crime now, 6 suspected kidnappers have been arrested by the FCT Police Command after they allegedly abducted 3 persons. The Police Command said in a statement it is now deployed covert and overt crime fighting strategies to strengthen security across the Federal Capital Territory, especially in tough terrains. The command says it has also launched a strategic counter-kidnapping operation to checkmate the emerging security concerns. The police is also asking residents of the FCT to report any suspicious persons or activities around their vicinity and at the nearest police station. Move from the north now to the south, in Osun State, where the state government has declared a 24-hour curfew in Irepodun and Orlu local government councils, following a communal clash in the 2 areas. The clashes between Ilobu and Erionshu communities over land dispute led to the death of 1 person, with others injured. Residents are said to have fled their homes, and other reports of burnt houses in some parts. The military has been deployed to the area to restore calm to the troubled areas. According to residents, some indigenes of Ilobu residing in Erionshu were attacked by residents of Erionshu, and this has provoked a retaliatory action.
It started since yesterday. People, they went to Ilobu at Awesi. They started destroying houses, of which nobody retaliated. But I called one of the commissioner yesterday, and he deployed commissioner of police to that place with the hope that things will die down. But around 10 o'clock today, it was terrible. Those people came with rifle gun. They kill a lot of people there, burning houses. Look at the way I dress. I didn't put on anything. We don't know where to go to. We don't know where to run to. And we have government. Why can't they produce army to this place? Policemen cannot handle this situation. They should at least save us, for crying out loud.
Lobu and Osun, they are in the same local government. They've been together for a very long time. But there's been this cold war about land demarcation, where we start, where our turn ends. And that is exactly the real issue. And it happens because of the ongoing EHD about NPC, National Population Commission. Another thing that I would like to say is, what we are witnessing is a result of government failure. This matter was reported to the security agents as far as about 48 hours ago. That was on Friday. Nothing has been done up to this morning, and we can see that it is getting increased, more tension in the community. I mean, both communities. People are having, people have been evacuated from where they are living to another safer place, even outside the community, and that is what we are witnessing. I cannot say this is the number of victims, but there are some. But there are some people who have, sustained gunshot injuries, and many of them were brought to the palace as Ilobu, and some of them are there. There's a dead body right here at the palace of Olubu of Ilobu as I speak right now. So we don't know if there are still some other people, but they are still bringing some people that have sustained gunshot injury into the palace. Estimatedly, it should be more than 15 people.
The Catholic Bishop of Yola Diocese, Bishop Dami Mamza, says he's worried about what he calls a slow pace of resettlement of displaced persons in the IDP camps in Adamawa State. The bishop expressed this concern while inspecting 100 housing units being built for the internally displaced persons by the Catholic Diocese, supported by UNICEF, Mission of Germany, and other local and international donor agencies.
Adamawa State is one of the most affected by the Boko Haram insurgency, with numerous lives lost and thousands of people displaced from their ancestral homes. 5 camps were established to accommodate the displaced, but with the recent restoration of peace and improved security in the area, many of them have returned home. Only a few of them still occupy the 2 remaining official camps and the St. Teresa IDP's camp, which is why the Yola Catholic Bishop is on a mission to ensure that all displaced persons are relocated to their own homes. As part of its resettlement program, The Catholic Diocese, supported by UNICEF and some other donor agencies, has embarked on the construction of houses for these IDPs in Sangere Margi in Gire local government area. 10 hectares of land was acquired to cater for almost 80 households from the Catholic IDP camp, and about 100-bedroom apartment with basic amenities have been provided.
We decide that they are our people of Adamawa state, and also through our indigenous, we are also people from Madagali, Michika, and some over. So we live together with them so far. So the living will not be going to be difficult to us.
The Catholic bishop, on an inspection of the project, assures the people that by April this year, beneficiaries should be occupying the houses.
I don't see any reason why this time around we should be having IDPs in the camp in Adamawa State. Something should be done, particularly by the Northeast Development Commission. We understand there are a lot of resources, enough resources for those IDPs, either to return them to their original homes that are already safe, and then make, even if it means temporary buildings for their houses for them, so that gradually they settle down and then they will be able to pick up pieces and pieces of their lives.
For these displaced persons, relocating to their homes or host communities is probably the first step towards rebuilding their lives and reintegrating themselves back to the society.
We're in Imo State, where residents of Orlu town can now heave a sigh of relief following the lifting of the dusk to dawn curfew early imposed on the town a few weeks ago by the state government. Some residents who lost family members and whose family members were injured are appealing to the government to come to their aid to alleviate the burden of earning a living. They made the plea when the former Imo State governor and senator representing the area, Rochas Okorocha, visited the community.
Monday, January 25th, 2020 would no doubt be a day to remember for residents of Orlu town in Orlu local government area of Imo State after a gun battle between soldiers and unknown gunmen which led to loss of lives and property. However, it appears normalcy has returned to the town following the lifting of the dusk to dawn curfew earlier imposed by the state government. Here at the palace of the traditional ruler of Uzobi Umna community, Boniface Okereke, some affected victims share their experience on the events of that day, as they also ask the government to help them get their lives back.
The families of these people from Nigeria.
While sympathizing with victims, federal lawmaker representing the Orlu people in the upper legislative chamber, Senator Rochas Okorocha, who was on a visit to the area, appealed to Nigerians to imbibe the spirit of tolerance and peaceful coexistence. He also donated 2 million naira to those affected to help cushion the effects of the incident.
I know there is so much anger and bitterness in our land, and people have tended to express this bitterness and anger in different ways. But the one I condemn is taking of lives, because life is the property of God and does not belong to anyone.
Even though security operatives are still at strategic places monitoring the area in case of any eventuality, residents say they are glad that normal economic activities are resumed in Orlu town. Eyitokokute, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, federal government fixes Tuesday, February 9th for groundbreaking ceremony of Kano Maradi Railway project. Join us again. If you just joined us to watch the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Bandits kill 19 persons, burn down houses in Kaduna State as former NBA chairman in Imo State is murdered. Communal crashes in two local government areas of Orlu and Irepodun force Osun State government to declare a 24-hour curfew. Ekiti State Attorney General challenges Inspector General of Police in court over sack of pregnant female police officer. And rescue operations continue at the site of a collapsed Indian dam which triggered a huge flood. The Attorney General and Commissioner for Justice in Ekiti State, Mr. Olawale Faponda, has instituted a lawsuit against the Inspector General of Police, Muhammad Adamu, over the dismissal of a pregnant policewoman. The unmarried female police corporal, Olajide Omolola, was sacked for getting pregnant. The State Police Commissioner, Babatunde Mobayo, had justified Olajide's sack, saying the policewoman contravened Section 127 of the police regulation, which recommends punitive measures that an unmarried woman, police officer, who becomes pregnant shall be discharged from the force and shall not be re-enlisted except with the approval of the Inspector General. The State Attorney General is seeking an order of court declaring Section 127 of the Police Act and regulations unconstitutional. The Attorney General has also written to the IGP offering the support of the State Ministry of Justice in conducting a gender audit of the Police Act and regulations. Sexual and gender-based violence is a widespread problem in Nigeria, and the COVID-19 pandemic seems to have exacerbated this problem with an increase in cases of rape, domestic violence, and other forms of violence against women and girls. In this report, our correspondent Linda Akigwe examines how state and non-state actors are responding to the problem.
Between March 23, 2020 to May 29, 2020, the FCT Sexual and Gender-Based Violence Response Team recorded an overwhelming number of 105 incidents, an average of 13 cases per week, up from 5 to 6 weekly incidents. The COVID-19 pandemic intensified an already deplorable crisis of sexual and gender-based violence as a result of the social distancing measures initiated during the early days of the pandemic. Some states and non-state actors are responding to this crisis in different ways, namely setting up of sexual assault referral centers across the country, the introduction of sexual offenders registers, and safe houses. We're about to head off to visit a private safe house here in the Federal Capital Territory run by the Dorothy Njamanze Foundation. This safe house caters for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence. For security reasons, we cannot tell you the exact location of this safe house because some of the survivors there are still hiding from their abusers. We arrive at a safe house, and Executive Director Dorothy Njamanze takes us around the 10-bed facility where she says survivors of sexual and gender-based violence are accommodated to recover from trauma. The home was opened in August 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. There are 4 babies born to underage mothers who are currently taking shelter while trying to get justice.
If I'm given an appointment, either with the hospital or with the police, and I was told to come back tomorrow, it meant that I should go back to where? So the safe space is the to where we have handled.
However, a major challenge is getting these survivors reintegrated into society.
There's need for more deliberate support to help people transition from this phase, but because it doesn't make sense to send people from this safe space back to their abusers. It's just another round of abuse all over again.
Sexual and gender-based violence often disrupts the lives of victims and their families. The ripple effect is unprecedented.
My neighbor went to my house and raped my daughter. My daughter is 13 years old. The time my neighbor raped my daughter, he pregnant my daughter. So after we go court, a month my daughter delivered, go court. This man located the place where I live. He now sent kidnapper to come and kidnap my daughter and the baby. But God in heaven saved us 2 times.
The following day, we were at a sexual assault referral center in Bauchi on the outskirts of the FCT. The European Union-funded Rule of Law and Anti-Corruption Program, in collaboration with the Federal Capital Administration, established their Way to Sexual Assault Referral Center at Bauchi General Hospital. There are currently 29 sexual assault referral centers in 17 states and the FCT.
SACs range from services that can be provided directly from the SAC, ranges from the basic medical to up to prosecutorial. That is, you also have the legal representative there. We have facilities to access all these services.
Ngozi Emelogu holds yoga practice every Saturday for survivors of sexual and gender-based violence, as well as human rights defenders working around these issues. She says the yoga practice helps in healing trauma by improving the physical and mental well-being of survivors. As some of these survivors struggle to get on with their lives as best as they can, non-state actors who work in this field want government at all levels to provide a more humane and efficient response to sexual and gender-based violence. And a place to start would be the provision of more safe houses and holistic support for survivors. Linda Akibe, Channels Television News.
And just before we continue, we do have news about the situation in Orlu State. In spite of the 24-hour curfew imposed by the state government, 2 more deaths have been recorded in Ilobu. And let's remember that 24-hour curfew was imposed in Irepodo and Orlu local government councils following a communal clash in the 2 areas. A clash between Ilobu and Orlu communities over land dispute led to the death of 1 person with 2 others. Residents said they fled their homes and their reports of burnt houses. So now we know 2 more people have died from the clashes despite the curfew imposed by the state government. To infrastructure now, the federal government has restored rail connectivity. But before that, President Muhammadu Buhari on Tuesday, February 9th, will perform a groundbreaking ceremony of the Kano-Maradi rail line that will link Nigeria and Niger by rail. The Minister of Transportation, Mr. Rotimi Amechi, says the project will begin immediately and will hopefully stimulate trade along that corridor. The minister was guest on our political program, Sunday Politics.
There's a competition between the coastal states in West Africa, and they are Nigeria, Togo, Benin Republic, Ghana, and Côte d'Ivoire, and we're not doing too well. And I have said it several times. Now, the reason why we're not doing too well is because the countries in the hinterland are afraid to use our roads. The roads are either bad, or there are criminals on the road. They think there are too many police checkpoints, and then the customs and the immigration checks are also there. So they want to avoid that. And avoiding that, they use either Benin Republic, they use Togo, or they use Ghana, or Côte d'Ivoire. To be competitive, for seaports to be competitive, you need to take a mode of transportation close to them that provides them ease of transportation. In that case, for us, is the rail line. When I assumed office as the Minister for Transport, I discovered that President Goodluck Jonathan's administration had done the feasibility studies, but they had not moved forward with this project. So we picked it up and decided to move forward with it, sought approval from the President and Cabinet, and it was approved. Now we're heading to the groundbreaking, which will happen on Tuesday, and construction will commence. Hopefully, we'll tend to make sure that it's completed within the period we're in government. If it's not completed within the period we're in government, then whoever takes over from us will complete it.
When the News at 10 returns, Buruli ulcer ravages a Bara community in Bauchi State as more residents, both young and old, suffer from heavy wounds. We'll have details soon. Join us again. Welcome back. The federal government has restored rail connectivity for containers to the Lagos Port Complex in Apapa, an effort expected to decongest the seaport. Several efforts by the government to take the pressure off the highways leading to the nation's busiest seaport has not paid off in recent past. Our correspondent, Dari Idowu, looks at the current port operation and how viable the new option is.
The problem of Apapa. Task Force, road rehabilitation, state interventions, the long-running crisis in Apapa and Tinkan Island port as to fight antidotes, and the problems persist. Adopting a more efficient cargo evacuation by rail is the new approach by the government to see off the challenge at the seaport. Cargo ships wait for weeks to be offloaded. Articulated trucks also on queue to gain access into the ports, and the problem spirals from there. 75% of Nigeria's import passed through Lagos ports in 2017. However, 90% of this cargo leave the ports by road. The bird's-eye view of a section of the Apapa port provides a clear picture of the multimodal transport options available now. The waterways for inflow and outflow of cargo, the newly linked rail line, and the commonly used roads. The narrow gauge on my right and the multiple double-track standard gauge, that is where I'm standing. These rail tracks have been laid right into the major seaports in the country. The federal government have also listed this project as a significant progress in decongesting the Apapa seaport. But how much of this long-standing problem can be solved with this project? It is obvious that there are underlying factors that may kick against the full optimization of the new rail line. This freight forwarder says there are ways around it.
The fact that most of the trailer and articulated truck owners are politicians. And then of recent, we have seen the springing up of so many other new companies. What the government needs to do now is kind of get some of those service providers, the transporters, let them be, allowed to take part in providing wagons.
The National Railway Corporation boss says the current rail infrastructure can move as many cargo as possible, provided the terminal operators and importers play their part.
The standard gauge can move 25 containers on a train, and we assume we can move at least 10 trains on the standard gauge per day, even it's only in the night, because you are moving the passenger in the day. The issue the Shippers Council is trying to resolve is, for instance, when you want to load a train, they have what they call rate charges. And the funniest part of it is that even the rate charges they cost to load the train is higher than the cost of the rail taking the goods out of the track. I don't see why that levy, I want to call it levy, should be there, because somebody wants to carry his container by rail, you charge him a special levy.
As the economic cost continues to rise with importers groaning, government is also counting its losses with allegations of procedural bypass. Port users are hopeful of an effective transportation system and a smooth sailing port operation to face the chaos in Apapa. Dari Ido, Channels Television News.
The Central Bank of Nigeria says there's no going back on its directives on the issue of cryptocurrencies in the country. The Apex Bank, in a statement today, says in spite of the criticism trailing its decision, it will continue to do all within its regulatory powers to educate Nigerians to desist from the use of cryptocurrencies. The bank says it is determined to protect the country's financial system from activities of fraudsters and speculators. Listing various reasons for its action, the central bank said not only are cryptocurrencies issued by unregulated and unlicensed entities, the patrons and users value anonymity, obscurity, and concealment, and there are risks of loss of investment, money laundering, terrorism financing, illicit fund flows, and criminal activities. The CBN also notes that several countries, including China, Canada, Taiwan, Indonesia, Algeria, Egypt, Morocco, Bolivia, and Saudi Arabia, have all placed certain level of restrictions on financial institutions facilitating cryptocurrency transactions. To the reaction to that, a former deputy governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Professor Kingsley Moghalu, has criticized the decision of the Apex Bank's directive against cryptocurrencies. Professor Moghalu says the CBN should have looked at ways of managing the crisis rather than the outright order disallowing banks to trade in the currencies.
$500 million worth of Bitcoin has been traded in Nigeria within the last 5 years. Nigeria is one of the top 10 countries in the use of cryptocurrencies in the world today. In fact, it comes in at number 8 after countries like Ukraine, Russia, South Africa, Kenya, and so on. So it's becoming a real factor in our financial system or investment ecosystem. And this is livelihoods from Nigerians. So when you take actions that look as if you are taking away opportunities from Nigerians, especially in a depressed economy. Also, one of the things that attracts Nigerians a lot to cryptocurrencies is because the central bank, and I've said this, a lot of the policy making that has come out from the bank in recent years has been a bit, ad hoc and, changes from today to tomorrow and so on, policies concerning remittances, policies concerning foreign exchange, and so on and so forth. But trading in these cryptocurrencies, for many people, protects them from fluctuations in the value of the naira. Because every fiat money, every currency in the world, over time depreciates in value because of inflation. And this is one of the reasons a lot of people go for cryptocurrencies. They're risky, but they don't have the problem of depreciation because of inflation.
Meanwhile, in spite of the repeated challenges to the passage of the Petroleum Industry Bill over the last 2 decades, the federal government believes that its passage is essential to future national development. These challenges were exemplified by the recent fisticuffs at public hearings on the bill at the National Assembly. According to the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Chief Timothy Silva, this time there is a consensus amongst critical stakeholders on the subject. He told Channel Television's Ladia Keridulale on our current affairs program Newsnight that this time, political considerations which had been the bane of previous attempts to pass the law would not be allowed to truncate this effort.
In this industry, certainty is everything. To the investor, if they are not certain about the environment, they don't want to invest. So there is the need for us to bring some certainty. We've been in the process of passing the PIB for a long time now. For 20 years, this country has been trying to pass the PIB. And so most of the investors took a sit-down and look approach because, if I'm going to invest in a territory and that they are in the process of changing the laws, I have to wait to see the exact complexion of the law before I invest or before I take the final decision. So most investors have actually taken that sit down and look approach. That's why, frankly, at this point, it's become very, very expedient that we pass the PIB, and we are working with the National Assembly. Right now, there is a consensus between us and the National Assembly that it's time to pass the PIB, and we're working with them. It has passed second reading in both houses. It's now been committed to the committees in both houses. And they've got consultants who are working with them, and these consultants are technical people, industry people who are really advising them, and they are working closely with us, as I told you. So I don't think that political infiltration will happen.
You can watch the full interview with Chief Timothy Silva on Newsnight. It airs tomorrow, Monday, 8th February 2021 at 9 p.m. right here on Channels Television. About a week ago, the people of Bara in Kerfi local government area of Bauchi State alerted the Ministry of Health about an unusual disease in their community. They reported cases of people with swollen legs and sore feet, which they said was becoming rampant. The healthcare agency is now investigating a case of Buruli cancer. Our correspondent, Hajira Aliyu, visited Bara and reports that several people are down with similar symptoms.
Bara community of Kirfi local government area of Bauchi State used to be quiet in its activity. But there is something stirring up noise among the people. Judging from the surface, everything seemed normal, but all is not quite well in this community. A strange ailment has found its way into the community. Both young and old are affected with sudden symptoms of sores and oozing wounds. Disease surveillance officers have stormed Bara to collect samples and medical history as the people look on, unsure of what to expect. Medical doctors explain that Buruli ulcer is mostly found in tropical areas and it affects the skin and sometimes the bone. And this can lead to permanent disfigurement and long-term disability.
Buruli ulcer is caused by Mycobacterium ulcerans, and it's a family of Mycobacterium, tuberculosis and leprosy. So, and usually the cause is unknown, but mostly lack of good sanitation and good hygiene is maybe the contributory factor.
Untreated, the sore soon develops into a most horrific sight, eating into the food. Here, Ladan, a father of 25 with 2 wives, half of his left foot has been consumed by the ailment.
Because I've spent over 40-something days without even sitting on the other side. I just used to sit on only one side because of the swelling. All throughout that duration, I'm not taking food, I'm not sleeping.
14-year-old Ali Gambo was in primary 4 when he first exhibited symptoms, and now his education has been cut short as he becomes disfigured.
We have never experienced something like this. At least 10 people living in my area have been affected, and there are still others in the entire community.
Back in Kirfi town is a private medical facility which treats related diseases, and some of the patients are also suspected to have been knocked down by Buruli ulcer.
Most of them, they take long time to stay, they're wasting their time at home. They are using the traditional medicine.
The people's major source of water supply is this borehole and hand-dug wells, which may be the source of the problem, but until proven, everything about the disease is assumed. Meanwhile, some of these persons may not be able to go to their farms again, and no one knows who is next, as the community appeals for urgent intervention. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
In separate developments, the leadership of the Nigerian Medical Association has condemned the outburst by members of the Joint Health Sector Union over the new bill seeking to amend the Medical and Dental Council Act, which is one of 5 health bills currently before the National Assembly. Members of the Joint Health Sectors Union and its allies on Tuesday, February 2nd, had faulted the bill seeking to amend the Medical and Dental Council Act, insisting that members were unfairly treated by the Senate Committee on Health during the public hearing on Monday. Jahisu leadership also insists that the new bill, if passed into law, will undermine the rights of other professions within the health sector. NMA president says the outburst over the new bill is condemnable and born out of ignorance to its provisions.
Following the well-organized and well-conducted public hearing on the 5 unprecedented health-related bills, it was surprising to note that the outburst and apprehension over the provisions of the bill by members of professions allied to medicine in Nigeria under the aegis of an amorphous body called JOHESU. The long title of the bill states very clearly that it's a bill to repeal the Medical and Dental Practitioners Act 1988 and enact Medical and Dental Practitioners Bill to establish the Medical and Dental Council of Nigeria for the regulation and control of medical and dental profession. For further clarity, Section 2 of the bill states that the provision of this bill shall apply to the professions of medicine and dentistry and all persons who are authorized to practice as medical practitioners or dental surgeons under this bill. It is therefore surprising that anyone would claim that the bill seeks to regulate any other healthcare professionals. We believe that these feelings are misguided and emanate from misunderstanding and ignorance of the purpose of the bill among these professionals, and mischief by a few of their leaders who exploit the misunderstanding and ignorance among their members.
staying with healthcare, but on the foreign scene, scientists are saying the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine offers minimal protection against mild diseases from the South Africa variant of COVID-19. Oxford-led vaccine developer, Professor Sarah Gilbert, says vaccines should still protect against severe disease. She said developers are likely to have a modified Oxford jab by the autumn to combat the South Africa variant. A spokesperson for the pharmaceutical company said he had not yet been able to properly establish whether the jab would prevent severe disease and hospitalization caused by the South Africa variant because those involved in the study had predominantly been young, healthy adults. Meanwhile, the UK government has reportedly ruled out issuing so-called vaccine passports to enable people who have had the jab against the coronavirus to travel abroad. Authorities in northern India are still searching for survivors after a Himalayan glacier crashed into a dam, triggering a huge flood. The dam broke open, causing a deluge of water through a valley in the state of Uttarakhand. While most villages have been evacuated, authorities warn that more than 125 people may have been caught in the torrent.
The search for survivors has been ongoing since the incident occurred. Uttarakhand Chief Minister Trivendra Singh Rawat says so far at least 125 people have been confirmed missing and that the number could rise. Many of the missing are workers at two power projects near the breached dam in Tapavan area. The bodies of 7 people have been recovered after water washed away parts of the Rishiganga Dam and everything else in its path. 12 people who had been trapped in the tunnel had been rescued, and efforts are underway to save others caught in another tunnel, according to the Federal Home Ministry. One witness reports a wall of dust, rock and water as an avalanche roared down the Dali Ganga River, located more than 500 kilometers north of New Delhi. Another described it as like watching a scene from a Bollywood film. Uttarakhand's police chief Ashok Kumar told reporters more than 50 people working at the dam were feared dead, though some others had been rescued. Uttarakhand in the Himalayas is prone to flash floods and landslides. In June 2013, record rainfall caused devastating floods that claimed 6,000 lives. The disaster was dubbed the Himalayan tsunami by the media due to the torrents of water unleashed in the mountainous area, which sent mud and rocks crashing down, burying homes, sweeping away buildings, roads, and bridges.
Myanmar today experienced the largest protest it has ever seen in a decade. Tens of thousands of people have been out on the streets calling on the military junta to release civilian leader Aung San Suu Kyi and other political detainees following Monday's coup. The army is yet to comment on the growing opposition and has restored internet access, blocked on Saturday. It did nothing to stop the protest, the biggest since the so-called Saffron Revolution in 2007, when thousands of the country's monks rose up against the military regime. Tens of thousands of people joined the protests on Sunday, the second day of mass protests that announced last week's coup and to demand the release of Aung San Suu Kyi. They gathered from all corners of Yangon in townships and headed towards the Sule Pagoda at the heart of the city, also rallying points during the Buddhist monk-led protests and others in 1988. They came sporting red shirts, red flags and red balloons, the color of Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy party. We don't want military dictatorship, we want democracy, they chant. The protests are also the biggest since the so-called Saffron Revolution in 2007, when thousands of monks in the country rose up against the military regime. Smaller protests were also held in Nay Pyi Do, Molamin, and Mandalay, Myanmar's second largest city, and many towns and villages across the country of 53 million people. It stretches from Indian Ocean islands to the fringes of the Himalayas. Tense scenes played out outside a local high school in the southeastern town of Myanmar as police fired shots in the air to break up a protest. By evening, Yangon residents banged on pots and pans after most of the protesters had dispersed. A cacophony rises in the darkness as people bang on kitchenware in a show of resistance, even as power cuts affect many districts of the city. Drivers honk their horns and passengers hold up photos of Suu Kyi. Protesters also gestured with a three-finger salute that has become a symbol against the coup. In sports news, the Principals Cup, a popular grassroots football tournament for secondary schools in Nigeria, started in the 70s and became a useful platform for producing stars for the country. The decision by the Ministry of Sports to revive the good old days has brought excitement to ex-internationals who are products of the brand.
The Principals Cup was no doubt a respected national grassroots football competition that produced stars such as the late Stephen Keshi, Daniel Amokachi, Sunday Olise and Henry Nwosu, amongst others. Ex-internationals Dosu Joseph and Tajuddin Disu have memories of winning the prestigious trophy with Igbobi College in the 1980s.
I played for Igbobi College in 1987 when we won the Principals Cup against Ansarudin. I think we played 0-0 full-time 90 minutes, and in penalty shootout we defeated them. I stopped 3 penalties and we won, and it was just lovely. And we came back into the school, we danced and danced and danced.
Principals Cup was there then, they picked us, we went to Sweden, go and win the Gothia Cup for Nigeria. We came back again. The following year, Principals Cup, they picked us. We went to America to win the Dallas Cup. We went to Brazil, win the Brazilian State Cup. We went to Norway, we win the Norwegian Cup. And the last one was we went to Denmark to win the Danish Cup. So from there, we graduated to the Flying Eagles.
For years, the competition has struggled to regain its reputation. And so it comes with great excitement that efforts are being made to revive the good old days.
History is there that Nigeria won the Olympics in 1996 in Atlanta when we defeated all the great names in football. And that was because we were able to catch them when they were young in the schools. And they excelled. After 1996 in Atlanta, we relaxed.
Somto Iwagu and John Ebenezer featured at the second edition of the Channel's Track and Field Classics. Hearing about the good old days of the Principals Cup has given them a good feeling about football.
I first came to this school in JS2. I wasn't really good at sports, but in academics I'm good. So this school brought me up. I never knew I could play football, I never knew I could run. But now when I kept on going, JS3, SS1, now I'm very good at sports. I'm part of this school football team, and I'm one of the fastest in the school.
At first, I never wanted to do anything sport or athletics because I'm not a good fan of athletics. Honestly, when I saw a senior named Ramon, I saw him playing football. Then I picked interest in playing football.
The competition is set to return with some level of rebranding that will expand its base to accommodate other sports such as athletics, table tennis and badminton.
Manchester City has ended an 18-year wait to beat Liverpool at Anfield in style with a 4-1 win to take a firm grip on the Premier League title race. Ilkay Gundogan scored twice and missed a penalty as Pep Guardiola's men moved 5 points clear of Manchester United with a game in hand to come at the top of the table. A third consecutive home defeat leaves Liverpool 10 points off the top in fourth, having also played a game more than City. Heung-min Son and the returning Harry Kane scored as Tottenham ended a run of 3 Premier League defeats with a 2-0 win against West Brom. And the main news again. Armed bandits today killed 19 persons, burnt down houses in Kaduna State as former NBA chairman Ndionyema Nwankwo in Imo State was also murdered. That is the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Amarachi Ubani. Good night and stay safe.